Welcome back, guys, to episode 36 of The Why of It All.
Hey, friends.
Hi. We are back today with an exciting guest, and her name is Michelle Steiner. She is a writer, speaker, photographer, and para-educator with a learning disability. She was told she could not go to college, get her bachelor's degree, or have the job she wanted. She was able to do all of that and more. So we are so excited to interview her today and get to know her just a little bit more.
Yes. All right, here we go. Let's bring her on. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Melanie and Gina.
Welcome. We're so happy to have you with
Yes.
us. And I'm so eager to hear your story.
Yes.
I've seen some of the beautiful photography that you've done, but I know there's way more to it than that. So.
You and I have had a couple of conversations on the phone, but do you want to start at the beginning?
Sure. I would be happy to.
Yeah.
The beginning of my story started whenever I was in kindergarten. And my teacher noticed that I was really struggling in the classroom. I was having a great deal of trouble with learning. I had difficulty with tying my shoes, writing my name, and anything math related. And I was really lucky that I had a teacher that noticed that something was going on. So she recommended to my parents that I get tested for having a learning disability. And sure enough, I have one. And when they called my parents in to give them the results, they did not give it a specific name at that point other than a learning disability, but they knew I was not going to be a mathematician when I was 5 or 6 years old. That was one thing the staff knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had to repeat kindergarten the following year in a different school, still a public school. It was in our school district, but I began specialty instruction in all areas. And I had kindergarten in the afternoons, and I also had accommodations so I could go into regular ed eventually with having the test read aloud and extra time on tests. And at school was a real struggle for me. Academically, just trying to learn, I was really frustrated and I was in such despair. And socially, it was really hard for me too. I went to a very small school district where everybody knew each other, and they were known for being close knit and welcoming if you were one of them. And it was clear from the start I was not one of them. And the bullying began really early. And I experienced this, yeah, in both regular ed and in learning support. In learning support, most of my other peers had, they struggled with reading. Some of them had behavior problems. Sadly, some of them came from some really bad trauma backgrounds, and some of them didn't even have learning disabilities. They didn't know where else to put them, so they just lumped them into learning support.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, in regular ed, it was hard too because everybody knew that I was struggling in the classroom, even when I was in there for reading or science or social studies. And it was also difficult because I couldn't hide. Everybody knew I went to learning support to have a test read to me or to have extra time on tests. So those years were really difficult for me in the very beginning.
Imagine, yeah.
Yeah, and school got a lot easier for me academically as I went throughout my school years. I was in all regular ed classes except for a math and a resource room once I got to high school. And I was getting decent grades. I was on honor roll and I was doing well with those supports. But socially, it got a lot harder for me. All the groups became, yeah, they became so defined. It was, and it wasn't like, oh, well, like in elementary school, you can't play with me on the playground or I'm not your friend anymore. It was, they had defined groups. And I made that, and I had an understanding though that things just weren't connecting with my peers. So I decided that I was going to get involved with an art group right outside of our high school. And there were peers that did not go to my school, and I got to make friends with them. And that was something that was really amazing because I could shed that reputation that followed me since kindergarten. And
Yeah.
yeah, and they had the same interest that I did. And once I started transitioning out of that group, I found an adult writing group with people just a few years older than I am. And they encouraged me to write about my learning disability. And I thought at that time, oh no, that's way too personal. So I wrote some really bad poetry and some other stuff I would not want to share today. But it's amazing because they got to see me not only grow as a writer, but as a person. And about almost 30 years later, our group still meets once a month to talk about writing, and we're in each other's lives.
Oh,
So,
I love
Oh,
that.
wow.
yeah.
Wow. That is so amazing.
Thank you.
Michelle, can you tell people the name of the disability? I remember you telling me, but I forgot the name of it.
Sure. I have dyscalculia, which is a math learning disability. I
Hmm.
have visual perception issues, but that's in my brain, not in my eyes. And I also have limited hand dexterity in both of my hands.
Okay.
Hmm.
Interesting.
That's interesting. And so it's categorized as basically a math thing, but it affects you in multiple different ways.
It really does. Because in the
Mhm.
beginning, it was a math based disability in school. But I have found that it goes beyond the classroom for me, at
Wow.
least. For example, I can't tell you my right from my left. Well, I can, but I mix it up a lot. I have
Mm.
difficulty just with eye hand coordination and the visual perception part makes driving not possible for me. So,
Mm.
budgeting's hard. So it's one of those things that we think it's one thing, but and it is that, but there's also other layers, and everybody experiences it differently too. I also can't read the face of a clock. I can tell you there's numbers and there's a big hand and a little hand, but my brain just does not understand that information. So yeah, it's a lot of
Wow.
things.
Is there any dyslexia as well with words? And I heard you
No.
say sometimes you had to have the test read to you.
Right. Now, I don't have that where some of the difficulty that I had with reading was more
Mhm.
comprehension. And it's not that I
Yeah.
can't read the words, but whenever I was younger, sometimes hearing the words out loud and hearing that test, that helped me to be able to understand that and process
I
the
see.
information better. Because I can still remember being a kid and saying, why do I have to have the test read to me? I can
Right.
read, and
Right.
my teachers were like, well, let's your brain's going to probably do better if you hear it read out loud.
Mhm.
And yeah, and also having that extra time gives me that too, because I'm able to be able to process the information.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, you talked about obviously the social aspect of this
Mm-hmm.
in school was very difficult. I can relate to that in the sense that I had a very difficult social experience in high school. I had no excuse or I had no justification for it. It was just my own personal insecurities. But it sounds to me like at least you had good resources and support from the
Mhm.
education side of things. It sounds like your parents did a good job of getting you to where you needed to go. You sounds like you had
Mm-hmm.
good educators that were there supporting you. Do you feel that way?
I feel I had wonderful parents that were my advocates.
Mm-hmm.
I when I
Mhm.
went to school, we did not go to individualized education plan meetings, but my mom and
Mm,
dad would ask me before they would go to a meeting. They would say, "We're going to your meeting. Do you have anything you want to talk about?" And they would
mm,
advocate for me and bring up those concerns and get back to me. They also worked really hard with the school because that was one of the key things. I ran into one of my first teachers that was learning support, and I got that chance to thank her. And she said, "Well, it was also your parents. If I
Mm.
had a concern, I would call your
Mhm.
parents up, and we
oh,
would talk. And if my mom had a concern, she would call the school as well. So,
Mhm.
and my mom and dad, they made me do the best that I could do. I didn't have to have perfect grades, but we spent a lot of long, tearful homework sessions sometimes studying, and I
Sure.
still had to go to school, even if I wasn't going to do well on a test or I was having trouble with my peers.
Mhm.
Most of my teachers were understanding. I got a couple of them that didn't quite get it. I think
Mhm.
that, but most of them were pretty understanding. I did have one that really I had to advocate for myself with. I had a learning support teacher who did not think that I could go to college because of my difficulties with math.
Wow.
And she wasn't wrong in the fact that it was going to be a struggle. I knew that, and
Mhm.
it certainly was, but she
Mhm.
didn't think that I could even work around that. And
Mhm.
she suggested a trade school, but nothing there interested me. And quite
Mhm.
frankly, with all the difficulties that I have, some of that stuff would have been 10 times harder. I knew I couldn't cut
yeah.
Yeah.
somebody's hair.
Mm.
I don't think I wanted to get into cooking, and I couldn't do protective services, and there wasn't an early childhood program. So I had to be that strong advocate for myself and
Mhm.
say, no, I want to go on to college. And I can also remember I had a I had a student teacher who really did encourage me. She said, you can go to college, you know how to study. And she was telling me about other students that had learning disabilities on campus. And I never heard of that. I heard a lot of stories wrote about white men that had reading disabilities.
Mhm.
And I didn't know any females that had learning disabilities in math, especially that were in college. So
Mhm.
I thought hearing that was so encouraging. And I can't remember what her name is, but I can remember whenever it got really hard at school, that was the voice that I would hear telling me that I could do it. I also had a psychiatrist at that time after high school who
Mhm.
told me based on my scores, I would not go beyond community college. So there
Wow.
were a lot of voices telling me that I couldn't do it.
Wow. So what there had to have been something inside you that
Yeah.
kept that determination, that motivation. What do you think that was when you had people around you, educators, professionals, people telling you that you weren't going to be able to do this? What do you think it was that made you continue to fight for yourself and to advocate for yourself?
I think a lot of it was support from my mom and dad. They were
Mhm.
amazing. But I was in college and I was really struggling. I still had that stigma from professors telling me that I was going to have limited job choices and peers and staff thinking that accommodations were cheating. I had my mom and dad that were very supportive. I also had a great group of friends, the same ones in my
Mhm.
writers group. They couldn't fix my disability or the fact that I was really struggling in school, but I can remember I was really having a hard time, and one of them gave me this Harlequin romance novel or something funny that just this cheesy novel, and we all laughed
Yeah.
at it. And we could go out on the weekends and talk and just kind of forget about that. And I think that was really key, having those friends. And I think also just going ahead and doing it afraid because I didn't
Oh.
know how it was going to work out.
Yes.
Yeah.
you know?
We're laughing because we've talked about this recently on a show about
Mhm.
courage is not the absence of fear. It is being afraid and doing it
Doing
anyway.
it anyway.
Good on you,
Exactly.
Michelle. That's awesome. Just
Love
I love
that.
it.
So, what did you get interested in college? What piqued your interest?
I knew that I always wanted to work with students, and I
Okay.
also love writing. But one of the things that I thought was, okay, I can't be a certified teacher because I knew just going in and passing teaching certifications, that was not going to be an option for me.
Okay.
I'm not a great test taker, and some of the content I knew I just wouldn't be able to understand. So I decided initially I went to study early childhood education. It still gave me that
Mm-hmm.
chance to be working with students in the classroom and going to college, and it didn't have a certification test. And that was a challenge, but I was able to get my associates in early childhood education. I moved out on my own for a number of years. I really enjoyed having that independence because I can't drive. I had an apartment. I had some temp jobs and childcares and some other schools, but I always wanted more for myself. And
Mm-hmm.
be careful what you wish for, as the old adage says.
Oh.
And when I had to move back in with my parents for financial reasons,
Mm-hmm.
that my job was downsizing, I thought this is the time I'm going to give university a try. I don't know if it's going to work out. And I carefully researched and I found the program that had the least amount of math and science possible. And it was still helping other people that had disabilities. And it didn't require a certification test. It was community programming for Americans with disabilities. And that's the service end of special education. And I
Wow.
thought, this is what I definitely want to do. And this time I applied, and I this was the time where I really went in and I used the disability accommodations. I got a note taker. I had extra time
Mm-hmm.
on tests. I had tutoring when I needed it, and most importantly, I advocated for myself. I would be able to go up to a professor and say, "My name's Michelle. I have a learning disability. This is the services I'm going to need." And most people went out of their way to help me. Other people maybe they didn't quite get the memo, but that was okay.
Sure.
And I did a lot better. My grades improved. I was able to make dean's list for a semester, and I graduated
Wow.
with a bachelor's degree despite being told I couldn't do it.
Oh,
That is so cool.
I
That is
love it.
such a cool story of just triumph over adversity. That
Yeah,
is,
this is incredible. You know, one of the things that Gina and I talk about on our show often is that nothing happens to us, everything happens for us. I'm curious. I can just tell, like, you are a ray of sunshine, first of all.
yes.
Um,
Thank you.
and I can just tell by the lightness of your being that you're not someone who has allowed this disability to define you or bog you down. I'm curious, can you identify with that statement? If nothing happens to us, everything happens for us. Can you identify with that? Is there any part of you that has considered how what you went through as a child, the cards that you were dealt, everything you've gone through to achieve what you've achieved, and where you've gotten to today has served you in some way?
I think it really has served me because it has given me an empathy and an understanding that I
Mm,
would not have if I did not go through it myself.
yeah.
I know that one of the big things is I work as a para-educator in the day with students that have disabilities. And I know I work with seventh graders this year, and I know what a lot of them are going through.
Oh,
It can be so intimidating to go in that room and not understand things,
Mhm.
and to want to know how to advocate and just or not even wanting to speak up and say that you're struggling. And sometimes I will get a student that maybe isn't even on my caseload, but they're really struggling in the classroom, and I can help out with anything except for math. I'm pretty clear on that with my students and the staff.
Sure.
I'm okay with talking about that, and I think that shows
Mhm.
too that everybody struggles with something.
Mhm.
But
yeah.
when I get those students sometimes that really struggle, they feel comfortable with me because they know that I'm not going to laugh at them or I'm not going to judge them or make them feel bad for
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
But I think if I didn't have the disability, I think I would definitely be sympathetic. I would try to be helpful, but I don't think I would understand how intimidating something so simple is to learn and to understand. But that gives me that
Mhm.
power to be able to do that. And I also think that's another way that helps out, like with the writing too. I Writing and reading have always been my passion, and I was able
Mhm.
to write about that and to be able to help out other people through that. And also photography. I'm not able to drive because of the disability, so when I'm on my walks, I often get that chance to take pictures of flowers. I get to stop and smell the roses, and people say, "Wow,
Mhm.
you bring out the details in a
Mm,
flower that I would miss." And I
Yeah.
think to myself, rather than being sad because I don't have a ride, I think, well, there's so much I would miss. And if I had that
Mhm.
disability, I couldn't take that picture of that flower.
Mm.
ah,
I'm going to tell you, I think what you're talking about is so interesting. And I can resonate with this because I think I told you, Michelle, when we talked the last time, that
Mm-hmm.
I used to work for a dentist who had a disability called
Yeah.
alexia. And it was where he could not read or write. You remember
yes, I
his
do remember
story.
that. Hmm.
And
Uh-huh.
so what I've found in listening to you too, and tell me if you think this is true, but working with him for 12 years, and I mean, he's a dentist. He got through undergrad. Tests were
Mm-hmm.
all read
Wow.
aloud to him.
Mm-hmm.
He was told he was retarded as a young age, that he was never going to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
He also wanted to go into the seminary, but that was going to involve too much reading and writing, which he can't do. And so that's why he got into dentistry. But my question is like, because of his disability, he literally had the mind of an elephant. Like, he could remember things from,
Mm-hmm.
like, his memory was so, like, for you and I that are very don't have good memories, like, I was always amazed by his memory. Do you feel like other senses have been sharpened for you, like that you're really gifted in the I know you're gifted in photography and in teaching, but like, I don't know, I felt like because of his disability, yes, it allowed him to be more empathetic and
Mm-hmm.
very humble, but also, do you feel like other senses are sharpened in you because of the disability?
I think sometimes it's the reading too, because if you would look at my test scores, I have definitely higher reading skills and I have these low math scores. And
Yeah.
that's what they call discrepancy theory, because a person that can
Mm.
read really well and or at least at an average level, and then
Hmm.
somebody that has the math scores at like a really low level, that's the discrepancy. So I think that I can do that a little bit better too.
Hmm.
I think it's noticing the details. I think my brain just notices things a lot
Yeah.
more maybe
Yeah.
than other people would notice, and that to be observant to that.
Hmm. Well, I think why you're drawn to the photography, right? And the detail in the
Hmm.
flowers and being
Yeah.
able to pick up on those things. I think
Yeah.
that's so
Hmm.
beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
your art, I mean, your photography is so beautiful too. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I want to know because you're married, right?
Hmm.
So I
Yes.
want to know, like, I like personal gooey stuff. Like, how did you meet your husband and when did you meet your husband?
Hey everybody, it's Melanie from The Why of It All. You guys already know Gina and I are passionate about healing mind, spirit, and body. And that's why we're proud to be sponsored by a brand whose passion for wellness runs as deep as ours, Tulip Blooms. Tulip Blooms is a family-owned American small business that handcrafts a variety of small batch premium skincare products, such as their original flagship product, Rainfall. Rainfall is a luxurious, lightweight face and body lotion made with soothing aloe vera and a powerhouse blend of cold-pressed botanical oils like jojoba, rosehip, and evening primrose. Rainfall is my go-to daily body lotion. I love that it's made with only the highest quality of pure, clean, natural ingredients. There's no synthetics at all, and it absorbs quickly, delivering lasting hydration without any greasiness. There are many scents to choose from, even unscented, but my favorite is rose geranium. Rainfall is gentle enough for the face, nourishing enough for the body, and the perfect daily go-to, especially after sun exposure when your skin craves extra care. Visit tulipblooms.shop and use our exclusive promo code HEAL, that's HEAL, at checkout for 10% off your order.
That is actual. There's an actual story behind that too.
Okay,
Let's hear it.
let's hear it.
I had a relationship. It was really hard with me with having a disability. I always wonder, am I getting to meet somebody? And I can remember I was breaking up with my ex, and he said, I am, I think you could drive if you wanted to, and I'm tired of taking you places. And other people said, oh, you may never meet somebody with that. And I always wanted to do that. And I was so tired of being in these bad relationships that I just prayed. And I said, God, do not send me anybody till it's the right person.
Right.
And there were a lot of signs that were happening. That I can remember a friend of mine said, uh, at the art center that I was at, he goes, oh, are you seeing anybody right now? And I said, oh yeah, not now. And he said, well, I have a feeling you're going to meet somebody at a place like this. And that is where I met my husband. Is the art center. I was walking
Wow.
down the street and he saw me, and he goes, wow, who's that girl in that red dress? Where's she going? Well, it turns out he was coming to the art center to play guitar that night, and we knew mutual friends.
Okay.
And we had that whole summer when we got to know each other. And then another friend of mine had a dream, and I forgot about this dream that he had. He told me that I was standing in front of the courthouse with the vintage wedding dress on, and I was getting married to this guy, and he didn't know who the guy was. And we had many years later, we got married, and we had our reception at the art center where we met. And the photographer took us on a little
Wow.
walk and in a park near the venue, and I had a vintage dress on, and then it didn't hit me until I got the pictures back. But the courthouse is in the background of the park, and
Wow.
it was like, yeah, there was just so many signs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and your friend is psychic.
I have a couple friends.
Your
Yeah,
friend
and
is
Yeah.
psychic that
yeah, two different
saw
people.
your destiny.
Hmm.
Wow.
Oh, I
Yep.
love how organic that story is
Me
too. There's so
too.
much like dating app
Oh,
stuff these days, and I love how
Yeah,
organic your
yeah.
meeting was.
and like Michelle, that's what I'm praying for myself because I refuse to go on any more dating apps. I'm single, and
Yeah.
so hearing your story, it's like okay, I can still meet somebody in the wild. I can still
the
meet
wild.
somebody like walking up to an art museum or at
Yeah.
the coffee shop. Like that's my prayer for me.
And that's one of the nice things because we got to be friends that whole summer and we couldn't have planned it. I couldn't have planned a
Yeah.
lot of that. And I think when you find somebody too, and you can be friends with them and you're in the same, interested in the same interest, I think that's a big thing too, because that way you're going towards that and people can, you're working on a project and, uh, I think that helps too. It's not, yeah, it's, I never had much luck. I think, well, that was before dating apps. I mean, when we did a singles mixer and that, I didn't have much luck with that and just a
Yeah.
lot of bad things. But yeah, that's what I would encourage people is just, yeah, because you never know when it's going to happen.
That's beautiful.
So true.
All right, I've got a question. So, our show, we tend to talk about the healing journey.
Right.
And Gina and I share our own stories and our own healing processes, and then we bring people on who have gone through their own healing experience. And a lot of times it's physical healing, but very often it's an emotional thing. And your story, especially with what you went through in the social setting in school that I told you I can very much relate to, it's a recipe for insecurity, right?
Yep.
And many people will carry that insecurity through their whole life. I'm curious, is that something that you struggled with? And then how do you feel about it now? I mean, you have accomplished so much more than anybody thought that you would. And you've accomplished more than normal Joe Schmoes running around out there have accomplished. So how has that affected your confidence level? Do you feel like you did struggle with insecurity? And if so, how have you overcome that? And can you tell us about your process with that?
I definitely have struggled with insecurity. I really struggled, especially whenever I was right out of high school and I was in college. I had a bit of imposter syndrome. I didn't know what that was at the time, but I thought, well, everybody else has it together and I'm the one that just can't get any of that. And I really struggled with acceptance and thinking that I could be successful with that. And I can remember when I was at college, I really struggled with that at university. I thought, why am I even here? Everybody else can do this a lot better than I can. And I think one of the things that really helped me was number one, having a great group of friends that were able to walk through a lot with me and be accepted. And that really helped. And I also think that another thing too was just going there and having those accomplishments was really key. I think for me when I got to university and I got an A on a test, I was so happy, or I understood a concept. Those little things started to build. And when I finally when I graduated, I had just that boost of confidence. I thought I was just on top of the world at that point. And my disability didn't go away because for so many years I thought, well, if my disability goes away and I'm able to overcome this, then I can succeed at all this stuff and then I'll be happy. And the truth was, I'll always have this. But I can be that person that still has success with that. And I think it's also setting me up for things that empower me and setting me up for success rather than failure. If I am taking pictures or reading or writing, I don't feel like I have a disability. I feel happy. I feel empowered. I feel confident. It puts a smile on my face. But if you put math in front of me or driving or something, it's just not going to do that. So I try to go for the things I can do, the things I can control, the things I'm able to change, and the things I love to do. And that just makes me more happier, more confident person than if I'm focusing on everything I don't have.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. And I kept thinking, hearing you talk, and then also looking at your photography. You know, Melanie has been talking about the simple pleasures of life. And what's really shifted things for her and me is coming back to seeing those things on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Like looking at your pictures of your flowers or being able to take pictures of flowers. Like for me, I would consider that like a simple pleasure. Like, do you still look at those things that you like, photography and writing and all that? Do you do you find, it seems like you find joy in that still every day,
I
or
still,
whenever you
I
get an
still,
opportunity?
I find joy in that. I can find joy in taking a walk to the gym or going up to have a coffee at our coffee
Yes.
shop. And I get that
She's
chance to
like
see a
us. I
picture
know.
of flower.
She's
Yeah,
like
I
us.
love that. And
Yes.
that brings me a lot of joy. Reading a book that I love to read, writing a story about something, that just brings me that happiness and that joy that I can do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's something that another person can't take away from you. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody else can take away for that happiness that you have. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people place a lot of that emphasis on other people making them happy. And it's really not that you should stay with somebody that's treating you poorly, or that you should, be with another person that's just not
Mm-hmm.
making you feel good about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times that happiness, that joy, doesn't come from another person. Sometimes that can just happen from just an experience, or just those everyday simple things.
Yes.
I love this so much. This is the
To
perfect follow-up to the conversation she and I just had a couple of hours ago on another
Wow.
episode that we're recording.
yes.
Just what we were talking about is practicing the presence and looking for those simple joys. And I just love everything that you're saying. And it sounds like to me you have lined up these things that are passions for you.
Yep.
And focusing on what you can do and what you can achieve and what you can change, you said. And all of those things, every time you kept saying writing and reading and the photography, and how, you're walking everywhere. So you really are, these are all meditations. Every
Yep.
one of these things is a meditation. It's something that invites you into presence of being and focuses your attention. And you're just doing this as your default state of being. Like,
Yep.
And we're having to work so hard
Right.
to do this. Like, you just remind me, again, we just talked about this, but you just remind me, and it's something that I struggle with, or I've struggled with,
Uh-huh.
is not looking for that joy in others, knowing that it's right here inside you, and that
Exactly.
you have everything you need right here. And that has been such a hard and long lesson for me to learn.
Right.
yeah.
So you're just a beautiful reminder, just talking to you. It's like, yes, like
and,
that.
and looking for the ordinary joys in every single moment. I was telling Gina, I was on a hike, or I went for a walk with my dog yesterday.
Oh.
And we're in Central Texas. It's been like, record-breaking heat this fall, but we finally had a cold snap, and all the trees are suddenly like, oh, it's fall. And I'm walking through like a tree tunnel where there's these big cedar elms on both sides. And as I'm walking, they're showering leaves down, these little tiny little leaves. And I looked up, and there was all these other people walking on the trail. It's a very busy public trail. And I'm watching as they're all just marching. They're all just in exercise mode, or they're on the phone, or they're talking to somebody. And I'm looking around like, nobody else is noticing this? Nobody else is recognizing that literally nature is showering party confetti down on my head right
Yes.
now. And I'm looking around like, is this for real? And everybody else was just like, totally oblivious.
I wish you could have recorded that.
I wish I could have recorded it. It was,
I can see it, like the visual you give me. It's like,
I was just in it though. I was just in it.
Beautiful.
And I love that. And I love that you have looked, it sounds to me like what I'm hearing is you have looked for the blessings and the gifts in the life that you were given. And
Yes,
you're like,
exactly.
This is not my strong suit. No big deal. This is. And I just love it so much.
Thank you.
yeah. And another thing too that keeps coming to my mind as you're talking, you were fortunate enough to have really supportive, loving parents. Am I right?
Yes, I
And-
was.
Yeah, and so was my boss, my boss, and it just makes me think about the advantages that has, and I think about all the children with disabilities that don't have that support system, and that I bet you see children that maybe don't have supportive parents or loving parents where they feel heard and supported, and they advocate for the children. It just it makes me sad that some of those children may not have the opportunities, right?
You're
And
right.
and people telling them, you can do this, and you're strong, and you make me proud. Like, I just feel how blessed you've been to have such loving people around you and supportive parents, because I think that makes a huge difference when you're dealing with stuff like this.
It really does. I mean, just having my mom and dad, that made all the difference in the world. And sometimes I do see students that don't have that or aren't as blessed with that. And I think that that makes it just harder for a lot of people out there.
Is there anything that you have in mind that are like things that you want to accomplish going forward? Like, you've accomplished so much already.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's on the bucket list, or anything that you've decided that you want to do, you want to accomplish, that maybe there might have been doubts, or maybe other people thought that you couldn't, but you're like, I'm determined and this is going to happen?
I would like to have my own book. I've had stories published in some anthologies, but I would like to have my own eventually. I got to get working on that. And I also would love to expand my blog and to definitely do more speaking and just more helping other people that have disabilities to thrive.
Yeah. Tell us about your blog.
Sure. I have a blog called Michelle's Mission where I write about my life with having a learning disability, and I feature my photography on there as well. But I also will write sometimes stories around their nature metaphors. So I might talk about the process of accepting my disabilities, like a flower that's unblooming, or it's like a rose, and there's that beautiful flower of a rose, but there's also the thorns sometimes that can be difficult. And sometimes I'll combine that with my photography as well. So I'll have a picture and I'll do some writing. And I want to make this simple enough for a person with a disability to be able to understand it so they feel like they're heard. And also for people that don't have them but might have loved ones or friends, that they're able to be able to understand that as well.
That's great.
I see a book in your future, Michelle. I definitely see a book in your future. That is exciting.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
You said the process of accepting your disability. Can you go into that a little bit deeper? Like, obviously there was the vague process we've talked about going from insecurity to accomplishment and gaining confidence from that, and then moving forward and achieving all of this stuff. But as far as the internal feeling-based process of that, can you expand on that a little bit more?
A lot of it, my process of accepting that was almost like a grieving process. It was, I had to grieve that loss of that person that was not going to have a disability. And that was hard. I had to go through all those different stages, and I know they're not linear, but I had to go through the sadness of, oh, I have this disability. I had to go through some of the anger. I had to go through the denial, and all of this is what got me to that point of, I have my disability. I'm in acceptance. I know what it is, and I'm all right with that. And it's looking towards hope. And sometimes, we still do fall back into some of those things. Sometimes it can be hard. Sometimes there are those things, and you go back into that process again. But ultimately, it just leads to that acceptance of it.
I love that. Thank you. We've talked about on our show before the healing spiral. Is that what it's called? The healing spiral? Are you familiar with this concept, the spiral?
No, I'm not.
A lot of people have heard about and talk about healing is not linear, right? We understand that there's what you just said. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, but hopefully over time, if you're doing the self-reflection and you're processing the emotion, you are moving in a healing trajectory. But another way to visualize that, as opposed to a line that goes up and down, is in the form of a spiral. Because essentially what's happening is we're moving in that upward trajectory, but we get to revisit those same feelings, those same triggers, the same insecurities and judgments and whatever else it is, but from a slightly higher vantage point each time we revisit it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I think, and that analogy to me makes more sense. At least it feels like it resonates more with what my experience has been, because exactly like what you just said, it's not like you're going to overcome the feeling and then you're going to just never experience it again. There's going to be things that will bring it up again, but this time from a new vantage point, and we get to revisit it. And in that process, we get to experience our growth.
Yep.
We get to
Exactly.
experience our own healing journey. And if you are someone who is self-aware, which you clearly are, and somebody who is doing the introspection and the self-reflection, it gets to be an affirmative process. Even though it sucks to revisit old wounds,
Right.
Right.
but it gets to be an affirmative process when you recognize that actually my experience of this trigger is different from how it was before.
Exactly.
And then there's
Yeah.
and that there's more to extract from the experience.
Exactly. Yeah, and you come full circle. Yep. I agree. And then you come back and understand.
Well, and one thing you brought to light for me was the grieving process. I'd never thought about having to grieve, accepting that you're always going to have a disability. There is a grief process. We've talked about grief in our previous podcasts about the loss of a loved one or loss of a pet or that type of grief. But I never really thought about grief in this scenario. So thank you
Right.
for enlightening me in that way.
Definitely. I mean, it's something with somebody that, that was my dream. Of course, I didn't even know that when I was that young, that was my dream, was to go to school and to not have a lot of these difficulties. And I know with my parents, that was also a process for them because they had the dreams of having a child that did not have that. So it's definitely
Interesting,
something.
Yeah.
there's something
Do you
to
have insight into your parents' experience of all of this? Can you go into that a little bit deeper if you think they'd be
Sure.
okay with you sharing?
Sure. I know that it was hard for them at first because, first of all, they didn't know. I mean, they didn't have a lot of awareness on that. I was their first child, so I struggled in preschool, but they really didn't. They thought, okay, she'll catch up. And I think it was hard for my dad, especially when they knew that I was not going to go very far with math or I was going to really struggle with it. My dad's like, what do you mean? She's never going to get it. 1+1 is always going to be 2. And they said, well, she's going to just not go beyond that understanding. And they clearly started to see that they were right. And that definitely is something that was hard. And they knew people that also went through learning support in the past when they went to school, and things changed. And so it wasn't the greatest system at that time. So I think that was hard when you're hearing that, because you have that whole image of what you know about learning support.
Yeah.
And luckily it was a lot different than what my mom and dad experienced. So I think that was hard as well. But we walked through that together, and it just has turned out to be a great experience.
Well, Michelle, it's been such a pleasure interviewing you today. Is there anything else?
I would like to know if there's anybody watching this show who either themselves is struggling with a learning disability or some other kind of disability, or knows someone, or is a family relation to someone with a disability. Do you have any words of wisdom for them? Anything you think that they should know, or from your experience, something that's been a big help for you?
One of the things I would tell someone that has a disability is not to give up, that things get better, and to just be able to know what you want and to be able to find a way to be able to do that. I would also encourage family members or friends not to give up on their person that has a disability, and to remember that success doesn't always come in the package that we expect, but sometimes it comes in something even better.
Oh,
I love that.
I love that too. Michelle, this has been so lovely, really, truly.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I love your energy. You are just bright and shiny as can be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you let everybody know how to find you if there's people who'd like to follow you?
Yes.
And guys, by the way, you have got to see her photography.
Yes. Yes.
It's incredible.
Thank you.
I'm curious, have you ever sold any of it? Like,
I have sold some pictures here and there. Yeah.
Oh, they're that
Sure you
good.
have.
They
Yeah,
really
they
are. Yeah.
Thank you. You can find me at my blog, www.michellesmission.com, and I'm also on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Great. And we'll make sure to put all those links down in the show description to make it easy for everybody. Michelle, thank
Okay.
you again. This has been amazing.
Yes.
Everybody, if you guys have enjoyed this episode, please go down on whatever platform you're on and hit the little positive affirmation button that's there.
Like, subscribe, follow.
Right. Share this episode with anybody that you know that you think can resonate and relate. I'm sure there's people out there that absolutely can.
Yes.
And it's by sharing these kinds of stories that, first of all, I'm inspired. I'm inspired right now just having this conversation with you. And by spreading these kinds of stories, this is the way that we share light, we share love, and we raise the frequency and inspire everybody else. So thank you so much for being here. You guys, we will look forward to seeing you all on the next one. And Michelle, if you get this book out, will you please come back on and we can talk about it?
I would love to.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. We hope you have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.